Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Monday out there and happy start to October. And we've got a pretty busy week ahead for a lot of us, and that does luckily include a big time cool down and honestly, probably the first real taste of fall for many Americans going into this weekend. So, again, very eventful week up ahead. But before we do get to that really nice stretch of fall like weather, we do have some other things that we do need to be concerned about, including some severe weather as soon as really currently, but also going into tomorrow. So definitely going to discuss all of that in today's video. We're also going to discuss some of the possible side effects of this nicer fall weather that could not be so great for some folks, and we're also going to touch on that fall foliage forecast here towards the end of the video. So big old fall-like video for a lot of people, and I know I'm at least excited about that, and hopefully you are as well. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. We are getting into that time of year where things get a little bit more exciting in terms of kind of the weather on YouTube. We're not just going to be talking about severe weather, but going into the next couple of months, likely some snowstorms to talk about, and really as we get into that transition into wintertime, things should really pick up, especially with this El Nino year ahead, really going to bring quite an active pattern for a lot of folks. Also, if you do like this video, make sure to hit that like button and share it with some people who you think might be impacted by some of that weather that we do discuss here later on in the video. With that said, though, let's go ahead and jump right into that forecast. So currently taking a look at the continental United States, you'll notice a pretty distinctive pattern right now with very big ridging ongoing in the east, dominated by that high pressure, and some pretty impressive troughing back out into the western United States. So what that has led to is very clear and pretty average conditions for most of the eastern United States, albeit very dry as well. So again, pretty nice stretch of weather we've been here in the east. Now, back out west, it's been a very different story as we've had some storm systems rolling on through the Pacific Northwest, and one of those systems kind of now spinning away over the Rockies, and as we go through the next couple of days, that storm system will eventually eject into the plains, as well as this whole trough really as a whole, again, moving into the plains and bringing with that the chance of some pretty big time severe storms going into tomorrow afternoon. So definitely going to be a pretty big time topic, but already we're seeing some of those storms fire off, and down here into New Mexico and Texas, we are seeing some of those severe thunderstorm watches and warnings as these storms do, begin to pack quite a punch here, again, into eastern New Mexico there and into western Texas, also seeing some of those stronger storms. And you'll notice just in general, pretty easy to spot this pattern out on radar as well. Very dry in the east due to that ridging, and, quite unsettled weather back out west due to that troughing, seeing rain up towards Portland, Seattle, and then throughout the Rockies, including even some snow there in those higher elevations. So again, just another sign that we're slowly transitioning into that cooler time period of the year. So taking a look at tomorrow and the severe weather outlook, we do have a slight risk up for a lot of folks from Nebraska all the way down towards the Rio Grande down into Texas. So a very big area that we could be dealing with some strong storms, and that does include the threat of a tornado or two tomorrow, possible really anywhere in this darker green, but especially that yellow color there on your map has the highest chance of seeing an isolated tornado or two. But really the bigger threats tomorrow will definitely be some of that large damaging hail as well as those strong straight line winds. So definitely have a way to get those warnings tomorrow as these storms roll on through. Now let's go ahead and talk about some of those storms. I'm going to move myself out of the way here just so you can see it a little bit easier. We're going to start here into the southern plains for you folks into Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, Missouri, and some other folks here through this region that could see some of those storms as early as tomorrow. So again, right now going through this evening, we are seeing some of these stronger storms out here through New Mexico and even into eastern Colorado, and again back into western Texas as we talked about. Now, another thing I will mention, again, look at this blue popping up on your map here in Colorado. That is snow falling there in those higher elevations. Definitely one of the first snowstorms we are seeing for those folks this year. And again, that snow could accumulate up to a couple inches there on those higher peaks. Now, again, pretty or not very populated areas out there, but still, again, a sign that we are transitioning into that colder time of the year. Now, as we move this ahead, those current storms that are ongoing will continue to march eastbound, getting into western Kansas, western Nebraska, and the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle overnight tonight, but will begin to fizzle by the time we get into tomorrow morning, and that's when this trough really gets kind of east of the Rockies here and has a chance to really produce some strong storms tomorrow afternoon and evening. So again, we could see some clusters of storms here anywhere into Kansas, back down towards the Red River Valley here into Oklahoma and into the Texas Panhandle. Again, main threats here will be damaging straight line winds as well as some hail, but cannot rule out a tornado or two. Luckily, those tornadoes, though, should be relatively weak as there's not quite too many kinematics here and thermodynamics overlapping to cause any big-time tornado threat. But again, it can never rule that out here in this part of the country with storm systems like this. Now, tomorrow could also have a bit of a 1-2 punch for places like Kansas. You could get one round kind of around sunset, and then another round of storms behind that going into the overnight hours. So, again, really throughout all of tomorrow night, you got to have a way to get those warnings as some of these stronger storms roll on through the area. And then again, could get another round of those going into Wednesday afternoon. Likely that time more localized down here towards the Red River Valley into Oklahoma and Texas and back into Arkansas as well, having the chance of seeing some of those stronger storms there on Wednesday afternoon. Before going into Thursday, things should really improve, but again, Wednesday night, those storms again could continue down into the Red River Valley, into Texas, and into Oklahoma there as well. But I think by the time we get into Thursday and Friday, things should slowly begin to improve for a lot of folks down that way. Now, taking a look at the northern plains, also at risk here for some of those stronger storms, and we definitely need to watch out for that. Overall, pretty quiet tonight for most folks outside of the western Dakotas there and western Nebraska, which could see some stronger storms this evening. But tomorrow afternoon is whenever we'll get another kind of burst of that severe weather potential here into sections of Nebraska. Could see some of that severe weather, even into Iowa, maybe even as far north there as Minneapolis. Could see some of those stronger storms as well. For folks back up here towards the northern Dakotas, still a chance of some severe weather, but I think it'll be a bit more stable back here towards North Dakota, where just won't really have as much of that thermodynamic support, meaning it won't be quite unstable enough for those storms to get strong. So we'll definitely watch out for that. But overall, I think the bigger threat will be down towards Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas tomorrow afternoon. Now, again, those storms will continue to work east rather, through the overnight hours of tomorrow and should really clear out by the time we get into Wednesday afternoon. Although can't rule out some scattered showers Wednesday afternoon for some folks back up towards the Great Lakes from Michigan down towards Chicago, maybe even towards the St. Louis area. Could see some scattered showers and storms going into Wednesday overnight. And another thing you'll notice here on this map is another piece of energy that kind of begins to work its way back in after that first round. That could once again bring some showers and storms for you folks up towards Minneapolis, much of Minnesota, the Dakotas, and Wisconsin later on into the week. But that piece of energy will be bringing with it much colder air. So that is kind of the good and exciting news as we go later into this week. Alrighty, so again, taking a look at the overall pattern right now, a lot of troughing out west. That's leading to this stormy activity, but with that trough moving into the plains tomorrow causing that severe weather, that will signal a shift in the pattern. So go ahead and move this ahead into time. Again, that trough gets into the plains, and you'll notice our next big piece of energy, or our next big trough that will swing on through, this time it's not swinging down into the western United States. It's going to ride down kind of the spine of the Rocky Mountains there and really begin to dip into the eastern United States. So by the time we go into this weekend, you'll notice we have a complete opposite picture compared to what we're dealing with right now. Going into this weekend, big ridging out west, indicating nicer weather, with troughing in the east, indicating not necessarily unsettled weather, although there will be for some folks, but overall the bigger story will be the colder air that this trough brings down from Canada with it as it swings on through the eastern United States. So that will be the big story for us folks in the east going ahead into this week. Now, another way to look at this is our 500 millibar height map, and what this is going to show us is kind of just where in the atmosphere we're seeing those deeper pressures and those colder temperatures. So right now, again, out into the east, a lot of ridging being indicated very well by this current height map. Again, very tall heights, meaning just not that much deepening in the pressure. Very higher pressures, I guess is what I'm trying to say here, and very warm temperatures. So that is leading to a lot of ridging in the east right now. But as we move this ahead, you'll notice that blue will swing in from Canada and really dive down into the eastern United States. And again, with that, we will see much cooler weather as that really originates from Canada and works into the eastern lower 48 by the time we get into Saturday, but even Sunday as well. You'll notice that hangs around, and it could hang around for a while, potentially even into early next week before likely it gets kicked back out to sea and we get back to a little bit more of average temperatures. So visualizing that on a temperature map here, again, 850 millibar temperature anomaly. Pretty much what this shows us is just, again, the departure from normal in temperatures. And by the time we get into this weekend, look at this very big, strong area of blue coming out of Canada. And this could bring temperatures anywhere from 5 to maybe even up towards 15 degrees below what they should be this time of year. So pretty exciting stuff here. And again, this is going to make it feel very fall-like and bringing with it likely potentially the first frost of the year, maybe even freeze of the year for some folks here in the higher elevations of the southeast. So again, this is really that first nice shot of cooler fall air, and I'm sure a lot of folks are really going to be excited to see that on the horizon. Now, in terms of precipitation, again, we are going to see some storms into the plains this week. The unfortunate thing for us in the east is we've been so dry recently, and unfortunately, I don't really see an end in sight to that dry weather. Looking at this map right here, you might see, okay, well, here's a nice line of rain. That should work east, and it will, but unfortunately, the energy that is supplying that lifting mechanism for this is getting pretty far north at this point, and by the time it hits the Appalachian chain, that will really wring out any precipitation, and not much rain is going to get into the southeast over the next week, likely even longer than that. So going into this weekend, again, could see maybe some areas of light rain into the southeast and mid-Atlantic, but outside of that, again, dry as a bone, as we're just not getting enough lifting going into the next week or so. And unfortunately, behind that, we're going to see very dry air. So again, very limited chance of rain over the next week, at least, maybe even longer than that for much of us here in the southeast. All right, so I'm sure one big question you're asking is, well, how cold is it going to get? This is, excuse me, our GFS model run from this afternoon, and these are low temperatures going into this Saturday and Sunday. So for Saturday night football, if you got college football games going on out there, it could get quite chilly. Might be that first jacket game of the year. Low temperatures here into the Appalachian chain. Look at this, getting down below 40, potentially near that freezing mark for folks, especially in those higher elevations of West Virginia, Virginia, and North Carolina. Could really get close to that freezing mark. So a lot of folks probably going to get frost advisories from this front as it moves on through this weekend. Some folks even freeze warnings as we really dip those temperatures down. And one thing that's really going to help to dip those temperatures down are the dew points here. So currently, definitely not oppressive dew points out there outside of some of those folks that we'll see some of those stronger storms over the next couple of days in the southern plains. But as we go into the weekend here, you'll notice that dry air really sweeps on through and bringing with it definitely the driest air of this fall that we've seen so far. Dew points down into the 20s and 30s, and this is going to sweep even as far south as potentially the Florida Panhandle and even into Central Florida potentially. Could get those dew points all the way down into the 40s. So again, very abnormally dry air, and with that, definitely cooler air. Now, although, all this sounds very good, there is unfortunately a downside. Now, as we talked about, that is going to be a lack of rain. And unfortunately, we're getting kind of into southeastern wildfire season as we get into October and November. So we really have to watch this, have to watch the trends. And, I'm sure a lot of us really enjoy this sunny, dry weather, although we got to be careful because too much of it can definitely be a bad thing. Now, rain over the next 7 days, again, I think we'll definitely see some out into the plains, especially the southern plains, where we have a little bit more of that moisture to work with as that trough is swinging on through that we were talking about. But unfortunately, that energy just isn't going to be able to work into the southeast. So very dry conditions from anywhere from Charlotte down towards Columbia, back down along the I-20 corridor from Atlanta, Birmingham, Jackson, Mississippi. Going to be very dry over at least the next 7 days, and again, likely longer than that. As we move this ahead, and I just realized again I forgot to move my picture over here, so I'm going to move that back really quickly. But again, very dry conditions, so have to watch out for that moving forward. And again, temperatures as well, likely pretty well below average over the next 6 to 10 days. Very high likelihood of that here in the eastern United States. And with that, also very dry conditions as well. So those two things combined, going to make it feel like fall, but also really have to watch out for that wildfire risk as we keep moving here into October. Alrighty, so one more thing I did want to share with you here is that kind of leaf forecast. Again, a lot of people this time of year like to go out, look at the changing colors out there and see when exactly is it going to arrive in their area. Now, this is a new website. Actually, it's called Explore Fall, and it's been put together by two of, honestly, the best kind of young meteorologists here in the country with Evan Fisher and Peter Forrester here out of the Carolinas and Virginia. Two very impressive people who are really good at what they do, and they put this together, and it does a really good job. And you can see already we're almost past peak fall color here in those extremely high elevations back out west. But overall speaking, for a lot of folks, that low color line is slowly working south here. It's made it about as far south as the St. Louis and Louisville area. But as we move this ahead through the next couple of days and into the next week or so, as we get into the middle of October, expect that color to really increase, likely hitting peak colors there up into the Midwest and into the northern Great Plains, and even into those higher elevations of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, getting close to high and peak color over the next couple of weeks. So again, those fall colors are definitely on their way and should definitely make for quite a beautiful scene, especially with this front moving on through. It's really going to speed up this process of those leaves changing color. So you might want to go ahead and plan a weekend over the next couple to maybe get out there to some of those higher elevations and see that color if you do have the chance to do so. Now, with that said, again, that's pretty much all I've got for you today, and a pretty exciting week ahead for a lot of folks with that transition into fall. I know October is really whenever people start thinking about it, even though September is technically the start of fall. So again, very exciting stuff ahead as we go into this week. Now, if you have any questions I didn't answer in this video, feel free to ask me in the comments, and I'll definitely get around to answering those as soon as I can. But with that said, have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you all next time.